Hello.
Hello.
All right, let me see here.
Hey, Mary.
How y'all doing?
Good evening. Good.
How are you?
I'm good. I've got about a foot and a half of snow here in Shrewsbury. You know,
Oh boy.
All's good for you.
beautiful. You know, nothing better. No, no school for my high schooler. My Yukon student had no school. My Stonehill student had school, so she's mad, but get over it.
Yeah, both of my kids enjoyed the day off.
Yeah. It actually turned out nice. I'm kind of glad it shifted, till earlier yesterday.
There, now we got it. Hey, Moonlight, how are you?
Oh,
Okay, now it's better.
there you go.
There I am.
There you are.
Okay. How's everybody
You were able
doing?
to
Doing good.
Fabulous.
Good. Good. Hey, bro. Hey, Jacob.
All
going
right.
on?
How are you?
Doing
Busy,
okay.
busy, Jacob, huh?
What's that?
I said you're busy.
Yeah, usually. It's just doing
All
some
right.
checking down at the PD, so
Yeah,
we're back now.
perfect. All right. Well, I think Brian's on here, but yeah, I see him on there. Just no camera. That's fine.
I'm about to just get all your slides up. I need one more second.
Okay. I'll wait for you.
You're so fancy, Brian.
There we are.
Isn't
I
that
don't
nice?
know if I'd go that far, but okay. Let me just pull up a blank page so I can do your meeting minutes.
Well organized and well prepared.
Let's see. Okay. I am ready if you all are.
I am ready. I will call it to order 5:05. And Brian, can I lean on you once again to make sure that we get the legal spiel that needs to be given through this platform?
Not a problem. Welcome everybody to the Chief of Police Screening Committee meeting held on Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. All participants are notified that this meeting is being recorded. For this meeting, we are using a product called GoToWebinar. Individuals participating on the GoToWebinar app or on the online platform should be able to see today's presentation and submit questions when directed. Attendees participating by phone are in a listen-only mode. A few examples of how you can either submit a question or raise a hand. All folks are asked to remember to use patience when submitting questions. They will be answered at the direction of the board chair, and all questions submitted will become part of the record.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
So first on the agenda, well, we've got a couple of items in this session before we go into executive, is to finalize the interview questions. And I'm wondering if everybody had an opportunity to review the ones that Mary had sent back out on Friday. And if so, are there any concerns? I'll just give an update. When Mary and I talked Thursday and, sort of took all the edits and put them all together, 13 questions was quite a bit, and not sure that we could get through that. So we thought we would dwindle it down, but we're still at 12. We only took one. However, a couple of them at the end, number 10 and 11 that are highlighted, those are going to be some that if we don't get through them, if we really pare it down to 10 questions, the 10th being, that sort of catch-all of what did we not ask you and why would you like to move forward, then if we don't get to 10 and 11, then we would ask the select board if they were interested in incorporating that into their questioning of their interviews. And, obviously, as we move along, once we start asking questions, what we asked for candidate one, we'll maintain that throughout, all candidates that we do end up interviewing so that we have consistency. I'll take any questions, comments related to the interview questions.
I have a couple of things. The first is that in our questions, and I think also in the sort of draft questions for the select board, there isn't a question that asks the candidate if they have questions. And I would imagine that we don't necessarily need to pose that kind of question to the screening committee, but it might be a good thing for the select board to keep in mind, is that the candidates may have questions about the structure of the position or something. The other thing that I wanted to ask about, I'm just wondering procedurally, even 9 or 10 questions is a lot to get through in a short interview. Is there any problem if we have to just skip questions even beyond the 2 that are highlighted here that might be sent on to the select board?
So great question. 2 things. The first one, the draft questions for the select board to consider. This is not the draft that they're actually working from. These are just ideas that came up that we did not incorporate into ours that will be given to them as they start their process. They still have time to do their meetings and create their own interview questionnaire that they're going to do. So that's a great point. And, I customarily, almost every interview I've ever done, they've been ended in some sort of, do you have any questions for us? And while I like the question, I think it could be worded a little bit differently, but you're right, it should be there. The second point is, do you have, or do any of the committee members have suggestions on if we are getting down in time, and as we're monitoring this and Mary's monitoring it, is there 1 or 2 other questions that we could say, okay, if we had to eliminate 1 or 2 more and then maybe suggest to the select board, we couldn't get to these due to time constraints, would you want to pick these up? What would those be? And, open for any suggestions.
Scott, I'm sorry. This is
No, go ahead, Mary.
I think we can do that based on our first interview. I think that if we take out 10 and 11, theoretically, I think we need to ask everybody the same questions, and it's about monitoring the time, because we can't ask people different questions or not all the same questions. So,
Correct.
So if we manage our time well, so if we take, there's 10, we can average, we can go through, and one of my roles is to, flag to the chair how we're doing on time. I have no problem, giving a 1-minute warning on a question. I think that if we lay out in the beginning, hey, you have an average of 3 to 4 minutes for each question, keep that in mind. And it's really a good tell if somebody's paying attention. and I'll give the red buzzer, if we need to move on. But I wouldn't want to cut out any more questions. Now, what Scott and I talked about was, if we find in our first interview that we are getting to all of them, then we don't need to cut these out. But I think we might be able to. I'm going to try to find a concise person to go first, but it's really about managing the time. I wouldn't prioritize any others to take out. It's just my 2 cents, because we have to ask every candidate we interview the same questions.
Right.
So if we don't ask the first candidates 10 and 11, we can't ask the subsequent questions.
Correct.
So I have a question that I want to put to everybody. Now, although I like all the questions, I really have the biggest issue with number 11, because I think the description of your philosophy on policing takes everybody to a new level. So maybe to consider that be one of the questions that we don't ask.
Thanks, Moonlight. And that was one of our thoughts when Mary and I were discussing and saying, I actually don't think we'll get to all of those. And that's why that was one where we thought, if we were getting it down to, 2, 3, 4 finalists, that might be one that the select board wants to get into a little bit more in depth and see what they can come up with in that level of an interview.
Okay.
So, I would agree. I mean, is your suggestion that we, even if time permitting, that we just don't ask that one in that format? Is that what you're suggesting?
It is my suggestion that number 11 be eliminated from our position. Yes.
Scott, if it's the will, I can just move that to the selectmen recommendations if people feel that way.
I would like to hear from others before I just, go ahead and have you do that. If there's anybody that, feels strongly that describe your philosophy on policing needs to be in a screening committee interview.
I agree. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Ryan,
I'm not
Go ahead,
opposed
Jason.
to removing it.
I'm the same way. I agree with Moonlight that it kind of suddenly goes to a different level.
Okay. So Mary, we'll go ahead and slide that one over to suggestions for the select board to work with.
Okay, great.
Now, Mary had mentioned this in one of our previous meetings, and we discussed it a little bit on Thursday in our phone call, asking the questions. I just, her recommendation, and I would concur, is that as the chair, I would just ask all the questions. And it would keep, it would allow Mary to have to work with one person when talking about timing, talking about if we need to move things along, where we're at in the time frame of it all. And she can also monitor if any of the other committee members need clarity from any candidate, then they can, be flagged and they can chime in and ask their clarifying points they need or questions that they have related to a response that they gave. What do others think about that?
I agree with that too, for sure. 'Cause everybody
Well-
speaks differently, presents differently.
And that's not to say I've done these in-person interviews, and I actually like people going around the table and asking questions in person. I've never done one through a virtual platform, so this is a first for me. I just think it might be easier on this platform to do it that way.
There is Scott, I can agree with you. The most comfortable position is to have one person ask all of the questions. There's some little something in the back of my head that says that if we went around and asked different questions, I think that it would also give this committee a chance to see how the person reacts to natural stuff that's going on in person-to-person contact.
Hmm.
I hope I'm making some sense out of that, but
I was gonna add, and maybe this is touching upon what you're trying to communicate, Moonlight. I do agree that in person, it's important for the community, the candidates to meet each of the community or members serving on the committee and get that reaction. I agree the logistics of this platform make it a little more challenging to do. I personally would be in support of having one person ask the questions if that makes sense for it to be the chair. I just wonder how can we make up that other piece where the candidate should know who they're talking to. And so if there's follow-up questions the committee member has, however we're going to handle that, I just want to make sure it doesn't feel like this flat experience where 7 people are just staring at this candidate with no emotion and no interaction, and only one person's doing that, because that will feel really artificial and one-dimensional. That's
thank
my
you,
only.
Brian.
Is that fair,
Yeah.
Moonlight?
That's fair. That's how I feel about it. Not that Scott couldn't handle it by himself without any question, but I think that we need to approach these candidates with some different kind of energy.
Right.
What do you think, Scott?
But no, I agree completely, and that's why when I've done these in person, everybody has had an opportunity to ask a question and introduce themselves and who they are. To Brian's point, finding a way on this platform to be able to make that connection with each one of us, with the candidate, and still stay within the time frame. So at least when you do chime in with a question, for follow-up, they know who Jacob Smith is. They know who Jason, so it's not, they've already had even just a 30-second, thanks for coming, just wanted to say hi, here's who I am. So maybe if each one of us could sort of put together a little, 30-second blurb of just introduction of who we are, and we may have questions of you as this goes on. So,
Right.
you'll know my voice if I chime in, that type of thing.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really reluctant about not doing the round robin because I think it's good, but then, at the same time, if we're going to do that, then we probably need an hour per candidate or maybe more, just because it is going to slow it down. So I think maybe that's the right balance, maybe do introductions and then maybe just, as a starting point to get everybody on the same field.
Okay.
I like that approach as well. What is the mechanism that we will raise a question? Will it be through the chat or some other way?
Mary, I'm going to defer that to you. How would you like that? Because you're going to be the one monitoring that.
Yeah, I think that and I need to become more familiar with this platform. I assume there's a way to raise your hand or to type in a question. Is that true, Brian?
So there is, so go ahead, Brian.
Can you see it all on your side?
Brian, hang on, because we're not going to be doing these in this platform.
Oh, are we going to be on Zoom?
Well, we're doing it in the companion product because they're an executive, so it'll be in GoToMeeting, not GoToWebinar. So some of the interactive features aren't there, or it's different. So
Right.
All right, well, I'll practice with you beforehand.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the second half of this meeting is going to be in executive on that same platform. So we'll have a chance to look at it
All right.
momentarily when we switch over to executive.
The idea is to somebody to either chat a question or raise their hand. And then rather than people shouting out, we can talk about, and usually the first one's a trial run. Does it make sense to do it at the moment or I like follow-ups just as they've asked the question rather than waiting to the end, because you're in the moment of their question. And we'll have to see how that goes. I think that how many people are we doing? And then we're going to back into the time. If we have to add another date so that we've got enough time, then we'll have to do that. So let's hold on that a little bit. But the mechanism is that that I would facilitate that watching the time.
Okay.
And Mary, are you also going to let us, even in our follow-up questions, sort of say to us in the most loving way, you got 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean,
I like
you know,
that, yes.
we all need to be aware of the fact that we're sort of working on a timeline. And I think that even though we have questions that are burning, we still need to be respectful for everybody's time.
Yeah, and Moonlight, just on that point, when we're doing, additional questions from the committee, they really should be, brief questions that are for clarity based on what somebody has presented to us, and not just something that comes up and like, I think this candidate could give me a good answer on this one. So we just have to make sure that those type of questions are very uniformed in our application, that we're asking clarifying questions based on their information that they gave us. And
Understood.
Points for brevity, if we can keep ourselves brief to allow the candidate enough time to respond.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions related to the interview questions? Any other concerns? Should we just keep those? There's now 11 the way they're set up, not 12. One of those being, we'll see where we go with time. I actually think we're going to get to all of them. I think things will go smoother than we were planning for. But if there's nothing else, then we can move on to the next item.
This may be for our closed session, but how long are we imagining each interview to be?
So I think Mary just alluded to that a minute ago. Once we determine how many candidates will move forward for interviews, we can sort of back into, well, we've already set aside 2 blocks of 2 hours. Is that sufficient for the number of candidates? Is it too much for the number of candidates? Or do we need more based on the number of candidates? So we really won't know until we all get together in our next session and figure out who's moving forward and who's not, and what that number looks like.
Got it, thanks.
I'm guessing 40 minutes.
That's a good ballpark.
Yeah.
All right.
Another part of that,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say might be, do we have a little bit of time after to discuss before we move into the next candidate? So is it hour blocks with a plan to be 40, 45? That's maybe where my mind was.
Okay. Yes, we put on their update just because we like to update ourselves on everything. Update on the hiring process. So here we are now. We're finalizing this. In a few moments, we got a couple other agenda items we got to do in this session, very quick, and then we'll move over to executive. At that point, we'll be able to review candidates, have those discussions. And I don't have the dates in front of me, but I believe we're looking at the 11th.
9 and 11.
9 and 11. 9th and 11th
11.
as our for our 2 dates tentative for interviews, and after that we'll be able to move it on to the select board with a recommendation of candidates for them to interview.
Right.
Any questions? Okay, the last 2 items we'll do in open meeting. Thank you, Brian, for pulling those up. If everybody had an opportunity to read them, we can just do a quick, is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 31st and January 21st? Okay, thank you. And I'm going to do both, Ryan. Is your motion for both? Is that fine?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve both the 31st and the December 31st and January 21st, 2021. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jacob. Any discussion, any edits, amendments? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Sounded unanimous to me, Brian.
So I've got, thank you.
All right, so
Nice.
that part is done. So our next step is going to be going into executive session. So we're going to move into executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21(8), to consider or interview applicants for employment by a preliminary screening committee if the chair declares that an open meeting will have a detrimental effect in obtaining qualified applicants, and I do so declare. This does require a roll call vote. So
Is there a second first? On that motion? Thank you.
not sure which one of them chimed in, but one of them did. So I, Basteresh.
Aye, Jacob Smith.
Hi, Jason Robinson.
Hi, Ryan Metters.
Hi, George Moon Knight Davis.
Hi, Chris Redman.
Hi, Brian Smith. Okay, you all should have the link for that in your email, and we'll see you on the other platform.
Thank you.
Scott?
Yes.
I don't know if I do have that link. We'll see. Okay.
So yeah, if you go back to your email from Brian, in the original one that said message 1, message 2, where it was all confidential, in there
Okay.
is a link. So just go to that original email, either 1 or 2, either one. It was in both of them. If you click on that link, it'll take you to the new platform that we need to get to.
Do you know what date that was?
Good question.
Looks like January 29th.
Thank you, Jason.
Okay. I can handle it.
All
I
right,
believe
I'm
we
gonna-
need to declare
I'm gonna
we
head
will
out
not
of
return.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
correct. Not returning. You got that in there, right, Brian?
I got that in there.
Thank
Thank you all.
Perfect.
I got message 2.
Okay, it should be highlighted, I think, in green at the bottom.
All right. Let's just do that. Go to webinar meeting. Yeah, I guess it is. Executive session. Yes.
There you go.
Gotcha.
That's it. We'll see you there.
See you there. Oh.